Yep. Okay, I just pinned it on Telegram. I'm gonna make one on Bitfinex as well. It's a small channel, but why not? All right, I think we're live. All right. Let's see. By the way, I think that I can hear myself twice. No, that's just because I had the stream open. Okay, we're live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of This Week in Crypto. If this is your first time here, this is a weekly panel call where the Santiment team and community members gather around and discuss the recent crypto market events from a fundamental perspective. So today, we're going to be talking about some interesting market insights that we've discovered over the past week using our own metrics and indicators. So if you have never used Sentiment before, I strongly suggest checking out app.sentiment.net. The link is going to be in the description of this video. We have developed dozens of tools and metrics, including on-chain or using on-chain social media and development activity, all with the purpose to help you better understand the crypto market and the behavior of its most important participants and stakeholders. So you'll see these metrics and indicators in action, many of them in the next maybe 45 to 60 minutes. And then you can get all of them for free for 2 weeks by just creating a free account on app.santiment.net. There's a 2-week trial where you can pretty much use all of our tools for free. Make sure that it's as powerful as we think it is, and then starting from there on, it's just $49 a month. So anyway, I suggest checking out sentiment.net after during the call. And also, if you don't want to wait until next week for you to talk to us about the general market conditions, be sure to join our Discord because we talk about this stuff pretty much every day on our trading channels and general channel. So if you would like to hear our opinion and the opinion of our community about various market events, where we think the market might be going, the performance and the health of various projects, the best place to get informed is our Discord. So the link to our Discord channel is going to be in the description of this video. Finally, uh, the first 30 minutes of this stream, as usual, is going to be dedicated to general market analysis and breakdown of various interesting events that we found over the previous week. Most of all, today we are going to be focusing on 3 topics. This will be Bitcoin, Ethereum, and of course, Uniswap. The Uniswap's new governance token, which has taken the crypto market by storm and has very much positively clogged the Ethereum network over the past 24 hours. So if you were planning on using Ethereum for anything and we're not planning on spending about $10 per transaction, yeah, you might want to wait until the next couple of days until the fees normalize at least somewhat. So these will be the 3 main topics that we cover today. But then afterwards, as we do every week, I would like you guys to let us know what you want us to talk about in terms of specific assets and specific coins that you think might have a great bounce back potential or might be priming for a correction. If you want our opinion on a current state of a specific coin from a data-driven perspective, let us know in the chat. And then at the end of our demonstration of our metrics, we will be going and doing some impromptu analysis of different coins that you type in the chat. So with that out of the way, I'm going to hand it over to Brian, who is already sharing his screen. And Brian, you can start us off.
All righty, thanks, Dino. Hey, everybody. So as usual, I'm going to give a quick recap of what the markets have been doing. You'll notice I'm showing showing a screener this time around as opposed to the sand sheets model that I've been showing in the last couple months. And this is kind of what we're kind of trending to as far as looking at market overviews these days. And if you haven't checked out the screener yet, you want to make sure to go up to the menu here, just go to screener, and you'll have by default a my screener at the top. Even if you're not logged in, I believe it should still be there. And you can just go to create screener, and you can do something like what I did, which is just a filter of all assets altogether, nothing really held back. And I'm showing the top 100 assets on our platform right now by market cap. So just like the model that we were showing before, you got your green that is showing positive, red showing negative. You get the idea. To give an idea of what's been happening over the last week, it has been a moderate / mild gaining week by just a hair. You'll notice a lot of altcoins, though, have been dropping pretty rapidly and has made it kind of a mixed bag. But the 2 main coins, as in largest, we've got Bitcoin at plus 6.5% and Ethereum at plus 5.2%. That's a good sign. Ethereum was actually in the red up until yesterday, and it had about an 8% gain before retracing slightly. And that was pretty encouraging for a lot of people who've been waiting for Ethereum to break away from Bitcoin and the rest of the markets for at least a brief moment. And with the Uniswap drop yesterday, it looked like Ethereum was a clear beneficiary to that. So we're looking to see if that continues on today or whether the peak of that has kind of fallen off. And I'll get into that in a moment after I go into some models. But I did want to highlight a few projects here. It looks like Kusama had a fantastic week. We had Hyperion, which actually has just been going pretty crazy. I'm going to see if I can isolate that really quick and show you guys what it's been doing. It had a massive, massive drop back on the 13th, and it's mostly recovered since then. But as you can see, it's been mostly just having a pretty amazing, 3-month run in particular. And if I go to something like daily active addresses, we can see that there's been a very clear growth here, which is an encouraging sign. I believe this was close to an all-time high. Yeah, it actually was an all-time high by a pretty clear margin. And the 1,313 daily active addresses that were going on the network just a few days ago signified that the bounce that happened after the huge drop off was pretty legitimate. And if you happened to be following Hyperion, which it's pretty hard to follow all the projects in the top 100, and this certainly hasn't been one we highlight often, but it is an ERC20 project, and ETH-based projects do have a full array of data. So you can look at a drop like this and really get a sense of, whether a bullish divergence is coming up. And the clear answer was yes here, because at this point, this was already the highest daily active address day of any point in these 6 months. So just something to point out there. I don't want to go too far into Hyperion. Let me on F11, go back here. There we go. Other projects to point out, let me go back to 7 days as well. You'll see it can toggle between 1 hour, 24 hours, and 7 days pretty instantly. So keep that in mind as well. Just click on these buttons. Sometimes they're a little hard to find. Also, Sushi was the biggest dropper of the top 100. And Sushi has, obviously gone on an amazing run in July and August. And over the past couple of weeks, that trend is kind of reversed. There's been a lot more interest in Uniswap, particularly in the last 24 hours with the big airdrop happening. So keep that in mind. And one of our DeFi residents has written up some great articles about Sushi over the past few weeks as well that I recommend you check out by going to the insights page up here. You can even see 1 week ago what the Sushi is going on. That was timed pretty well, I must say, by the author. So keep that in mind as well. And make sure to use this screener. I highly recommend it. It's a great tool, and it doesn't rely on having to go to Google Sheets or any other external tools like we were doing before. Moving on. Really quickly, I want to show this, which is just a highlight of how many times an asset has been trending. I first introduced this a couple of months ago, but wanted to dive into it and just give a quick update on what's been happening. It was sort of altcoin madness, as you can see here, in late July and early August. Red here signifies Bitcoin, orange is Ethereum, and then the rest of these bars are basically the next 10 altcoins after that. So this is 3 to 12, 13 to 22, etc. You can see that the mid-range altcoins really started trending. And just to give it a quick recap of what trending means, it means that it's had its highest deviation over its regular mean per project. So if something like Chainlink has been trending, that would qualify as a altcoin ranked 3 to 12 since it's currently ranked number 8. And you'll see that Link will be a top trending asset because of the fact that it's having so much more discussion over its regular expected amount over time. And when that happens, if it comes in the top 10, particularly the top 3, that's when you'll see that coins often peak. And around late July, altcoins they were doing pretty well, and they continued to do well right until around here, around the week of August 21st. And when you saw that Bitcoin and Ethereum had sustained low discussion compared to altcoins, that's when the altcoins started to retrace. You started to see Ethereum become the dominant presence here as it made its rise I think I think it actually retraced this week, and it was talked about for negative reasons, and then it started bouncing a little bit right around here and this past week. But Bitcoin became the dominant uh, discussed asset right around the turn of the month, and you notice that the altcoins really dropped off, and in price, you know, obviously following that, when altcoins drop off in price, they'll often have much less trending discussion, and that's exactly what happened. Now we're starting to get a little bit more again because we're seeing certain altcoins bounce, but it's kind of a mixed bag. But I want to point out that when you see such dominance from these altcoins with the large bars, that's usually a time that you're going to see a local top over time. And you want to buy into Bitcoin dominance when they're so low and so under the radar, so to speak. Moving on, Bitcoin. So right now I have the daily active addresses and age consumed, which you can simply highlight here on the left panel. Over the last 6 months, it's been a pretty good sign. You're seeing pretty sustained growth. It has sort of capped off here, and I'll show how that looks on the divergence model in just a second. But I want to show that, from a 6 month perspective, we're still looking good. Like, this is what you want to see as far as an asset being able to adapt, improve, innovate over time, and get more and more activity on its network. And this is what we want to see. And even when we dropped off here, had its big drop from about 12K to about 10K, I think you got to about 9,800 before bouncing a little bit. You see that we still had pretty high bars of address activity. Down here, if I can full screen it, might be a little easier. Also full screen that. We also had a very large token age consumed spike. Let me get off daily active addresses. Yeah, so this was our largest token age consumed spike since about April 29th. That's a pretty big deal. This basically means that it's the amount of tokens that have been moved from old addresses, and it factors in the amount of time that those old coins have been sitting in those old addresses as well. So this told us that a lot of dormant coins had finally been moved after a very long time. Typically, these large spikes indicate a temporary reversal. You'll notice here, it happened as the price was climbing and it dropped. Same point here, but this was very short-lived and it was able to bounce back. In this case, we had a very small dip, but this may have been all of it. So if you're expecting a huge price drop because it happened to happen on a rise, I wouldn't hold your breath. I don't know if this one really is going to last that long. And oftentimes I see them being more effective for smaller altcoins anyways. We had a
Yeah,
similar pattern.
actually, Brian,
Yeah.
while you're on that specific example, if you can also check out Bitcoin's exchange inflow, you'll see that there's been a pretty massive spike in Bitcoin's exchange inflow at pretty much the same time as this age consumed spike, pointing or suggesting to the fact that some long-term BTC holders might be looking to offload some of their bags or parts of their bags. So obviously, the biggest spike in exchange inflow over the past 3 months has happened pretty much dead on September 3rd as Bitcoin was bottoming out, suggesting capitulation. But this one is also fairly notable. So it basically happened maybe, I want to say 2 or 3 hours before Bitcoin finally made it to the 11K mark before correcting downwards a bit. So it seems like there's a fair amount of lack of confidence among some speculators in Bitcoin's ability to reach 11K. So if you can combine the exchange inflow spike with the spike in age consumed and also a spike in dormant speculation, you'll basically see all three of them coinciding and happening, occurring at around the same time, pointing to the fact that some long-term Bitcoin holders might be looking to offload parts of their bags. Now, whether that's already been priced in or not, it remains to be seen. Maybe there's still some sell pressure to work through on exchanges, because I think this happened like only maybe 12 hours ago or something. So yeah, keep that in mind. But it's not a great sign when you see the coinciding or correlating spike in both exchange inflow and age consumed or dormant circulation. Usually these types of moves indicate their volatility markers. They point to periods of increased price volatility for the coin in question. It has happened very often in the past for, as Brian mentioned, for small coins in particular, but also for Bitcoin and Ethereum. So when you see these types of spikes, especially when they happen on different metrics, different indicators combined, it might be a strong signal for some incoming price volatility for Bitcoin.
Yeah, great point, Dino. That's really precisely what Token Age consumed is. It marks the beginning of some volatility, and we can clearly see when this large spike happened. That's when we really started to see a lot of swings, a lot of indecision by traders and polarization, and it just continued on as we continued to get big spikes here, and we had the big exchange inflow just yesterday. So, yeah, great point there,
Yeah, actually,
combining the two metrics.
if you look at the mean dollar invested age as well, I think there's also an interesting point to be made for Bitcoin in particular. So maybe, yeah. So in the under network value, if you go to yeah, there we go. So you can see this drop off that happened yesterday, right? I think it might not just yet be entirely quote unquote priced in, but if you see the previous drop off or two drop offs in Bitcoin's mean dollar invested age, and that one here, which kind of coincided with the end of the Bitcoin rally and the start of the ranging period and consolidation period, and some sort of a fair amount of indecision in the market. And the one that happened before that, which is on May 31st, right as Bitcoin was kind of, yeah, right there, right alongside that Bitcoin's pump and dump moment there. And then the few previous ones in early May, you can see drop off $16 invest stage there during the top, and then there as well before the mini correction. So these types of spikes, like I mentioned, very often coincide with periods of increased volatility. Keep an eye on it. The fact that we're seeing both spikes in the hodler movement as well as exchange inflow pointing to an increase in sell side pressure might indicate some pain coming along for Bitcoin over the next couple of days. It's going to be on the BTC bulls to really try and absorb this sell pressure and reject the bearish trend. So keep an eye on these charts over the next couple of days. I think it's going to be, it might be quite interesting.
Yeah, thanks so much, Dino. And while we're on the topic of Bitcoin, before I jump over to Ethereum for just a moment, we'll show what Bitcoin's daily active address divergence looks like. And you can keep in mind that this has to be taken with a grain of salt. The latest day, Bitcoin tends to get the most active addresses toward the end of its market close. It's the only asset that tends to do that, so it's kind of an exception. But before today, you'll see that we mostly have had green after about a month, a little over a month of being overvalued. Once we got up to 12K, we weren't quite getting the address activity, and that's what I was talking about back here. If I go back to active addresses, doesn't want to show up. There we go. And I'll take everything else off. You'll see that it's kind of plateaued, right? Like it's been just slightly over where it was back in June, July, right? And because it hasn't grown the way price has when it was down here, and it's only just the orange bars are just slightly over where they were here, it basically the price has grown more than the address activity, which is why we sort of plateaued for a while, and we're getting all of these red bars when we were up with huge price. Now, after that drop, address activity suddenly became normalized, and it was within range of what was expected based on the 4 years of history that this model uses to calculate what is normal. And we did have kind of a big red bar here, which sort of signified that it was going to have a little bit of plateauing, but it actually quickly adjusted and we started going bullish again before too much damage to the price could be done. Today will be interesting though, because usually we're not quite down this far on this time of day. Usually, we're a little on the negative side, but not quite, all-time low on the graph. And that's a little concerning to me. And I'll show what Ethereum looks like as well since I'm here. We're still seeing a lot of bearishness. Now, keep in mind, yesterday, if you noticed on Twitter, we posted that we basically had a 50-day high in bullish divergence. That means from here all the way to about here or so, there was nothing as bullish as this tiny little bullish divergence that finally showed up on the 17th. So that's a great sign, but we've had so many days where we've been underwater as far as what the expected amount of address activity should be on Ethereum, that I'm still a little concerned that the price is going to come down and not be able to sustain itself in these high 300s. And if it makes an attempt at 400, it might be a good sell point, unless you're really starting to see, a pickup in address activity in a hurry. So I'll go back to Ethereum's price, main Sanbase chart now, and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. I'm going to full screen this, full screen that, and you'll see that right around late August, or I'm sorry, yeah, late July, early August, that's when we peaked here in DAA, and price was sort of going up as DAA was, but then this huge drop just happened with DAA, despite the price making a run at 500 up here, didn't quite make it. And as expected, because of this plummet in DAA, price kind of fell all at once and surprised a ton of people who were expecting just a huge run up to 500 and beyond. And that's something we look for. And this is that 50-day bullish spike we were talking about, when there was that huge spike in address activity, which hasn't been seen in, I think, about 35 to 40 days, around that range, in terms of just total DAA. That's when we first saw something in the green for over a month, and that was a big deal. We'll see how it looks today, but it doesn't look like it's going to be nearly where it was yesterday based on the on pace trend that we're looking at right now. So
Yeah, I
keep that
think
in mind.
also that
Yeah,
this particular spike in daily active addresses might well be connected to the
Uniswap.
Uniswap the airdrop, yeah, which we'll get to in a minute. So yeah, keep that in mind as well, that it might not be as organic as it might appear on the first glance.
Right. Exactly. I do think it was absolutely related. So a bit of fool's gold there. Doesn't mean Ethereum isn't a long-term great asset to invest in. Obviously not investment advice, but we do believe in Ethereum and ETH-based projects as long-term holds during different courses of the crypto market ebbs and flows. But as of the mid and short term, the fundamentals and address activity look a bit scary. Last thing I'm going to show is the NVT, which basically just gives us an overview of token circulation compared to its current market cap. And before I talk about what we're looking at here with Ethereum, I'll stick to the right order, go with Bitcoin, and we are still, surprisingly, not getting enough token circulation compared to the market cap right now. Token circulation being the amount of unique tokens moving between the network over time. And because of the attention that I think is on DeFi, altcoins in general, Bitcoin still isn't quite getting transacted the way it needs to see sustained growth over time. And you'll see historically, this model does predict fairly decently well on a long-term scale where the price is going to go. And right now, we're having our fourth straight month of red. If it closes out, over the trend lines and stays red like this, we'll be advising caution going into October, because of the fact that it's just not quite there in terms of unique tokens. But if you look at DAA divergence for Bitcoin, obviously it's pretty much where it should be. Ignore this current day until it's done. So a little caution there on Bitcoin. For Ethereum, complete opposite story as we've been going over the last few weeks. With DAA looking down, token circulation is looking way up. I still think that DAA is a slightly better price predictor based on the short and midterm, but on the long term, Ethereum still looks like it's getting an amazing amount of token circulation, which has sort of sustained this growth despite its lack of address activity. So keep in mind the two contrasting indicators there with these two different models. And if you don't have access to both and you would like some, just give me a ping, or just say in the general channel that you'd like access, and one of our staff will get to you and get you hooked up. and I will hand it back to you at this point, Dino, but I'll jump back in
Mm-hmm.
toward the end when we answer some questions on YouTube.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks a lot, Brian. So, guys, before we get into Uniswap, as I mentioned, after we talk about Uni, we are going to be taking questions from the audience and talking and doing some impromptu analysis on coins that you would like to see. So, if you're interested in a particular digital asset, a particular cryptocurrency, whether you think, whether you're interested in the health of its network or its crowd sentiment, or in general what we think about its long-term or mid-term potential, let us know in chat and we'll get to it after the following segment. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is the biggest topic of the week. It is the Uniswap launching, somewhat surprisingly, their own governance token, and at the same time airdropping, I think 150 million uni on the users of the platform, previous users of the platform. So we published a pretty nice overview of the Uni token and its tokenomics yesterday, and I'm gonna give it up to Kelvin to let us know a bit more about, what the Uniswap token is, how it works, and exactly why everybody is raging about it over the last couple of days. Kelvin, if you want to share a screen and maybe take us through the insight that was published yesterday on the platform, and yeah, well, let's start with that.
All right. Hey there, guys. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Hello? Okay, good. Yep. Hey there, guys. Yeah. So yes, the biggest topic this week so far would be the unicorn, Uniswap itself. As you guys may know, even previous weeks before, there was a very nice drama between Sushi Swap and Uniswap, whereby Sushi Swap actually drained an amount of liquidity over, and then did their migration, so on and so forth. You can actually read more about it in our insights page, or you can just head over to this insight and click on this link here. But for today, we are just going to focus on the Uni token, which is a governance token by Uniswap, and just give a quick overview. Most of the details here in this insights, you can actually get it from the blog post itself. It's extracted and summarized to be placed here. So yes, as Dino mentioned earlier, the Uni token is released now, and its main function later will be people will be able to vote on making proposals and vote on how the treasury is managed and whatnot. But for starters, the allocation is that for the first 4 years, since Genesis, 1 billion uni will be minted, and its allocation will be as such in the diagram you see, with majority of it heading towards the community, then the team, the investors, and advisors. After 4 years, there will be a
Sorry,
perpetual.
just one sec, Brian. If you can mute your mic, there seems to be some background noise coming from you.
All good?
All good.
All right. Good. Yep. So after 4 years, there will be a perpetual inflation rate of 2% per year. So it's important to take note of that, because therefore Uni is inflationary, kind of like Ethereum, and the market cap will tend to grow. So if anyone's doing any valuation, and the price that he or she is looking at right now, it's good to take note of this on the 5th year at least. But who knows where the price will be? I mean, right now, Uniswap is probably the biggest DEX out there and the most liquid one out there right now. So yeah. Yep. Yes. Then yeah, that will be the 10-year inflation, how it will look like. Um, okay, the release schedule. So we have right now out of 60%, around 15%, which is 150 million, is actually released and immediately can be claimed by anyone that used Uniswap at all in any way. If you're a liquidity provider, you do get more, depending on the amount of time that you have spent providing liquidity. Everything will be pro rata to you. If you are a user of, I think the V1 as well, that it goes even way back, you will get much more tokens. If you're a typical user, if you engage it in any way, or swapping something or just connecting to it, on you will get a flat rate of 400 tokens, 400 uni tokens, which at the right now the price of it I think is around $5.40. So that will be 2,000, 3,000, almost $3,000, I think. So yeah, it's pretty good free money. And Twitter is very happy about it. Everyone's going crazy how it's much better than the US government's stimulus package. A unicorn is actually giving us a nice amount of money. People are using it to buy PlayStations and whatnot. Um, so yeah, if you have multiple addresses, they'll be even more interesting. You have to go and check every one of them because you never know what pot of gold you might find. Instructions to how to claim these tokens will be covering it later. Yeah, so if you're a user, a liquidity provider, you're in luck. If you are a socks holder or a redeemer, you are also in luck. Now you might be wondering what the heck is socks? Well, socks is actually interesting experiment, I guess, by Uniswap back in 2019, May 2019. It's a limited edition dynamically priced sock, which you can purchase on unisocks.exchange, which at this price right now, it is worth $3,917. The price can only go up with each purchase, and if you redeem it, the price will go back down. Now, because of the launch of Uni, interestingly, yeah, stocks wasn't worth that much at that point in time. It was worth around, I think, what, like 400 or like 417 before Uniswap launched. And then when it launched, things went crazy. It went right now, yeah, for some reason it's $4,300. So technically speaking, you can actually, if you purchase here, it will be much more worthwhile investment than the Uni token. Yeah, so that's something interesting. And if you want, you can redeem it for a pair of socks. It's probably the most expensive socks. At one point in time, it was worth around, I think the all-time low for it was, yeah, 6 months ago at $41. This would be 1,000x for anyone that purchased a sock token. So yeah, meme coins for the win and a pair of socks that can rival a Bitcoin pizza. All right, now back to here. Okay, yes. Then 20 million uni is actually set aside for the liquidity mining program that is already live right now. If you're looking to U farm anything at all, you can join any one of the pools. Mainly, they are beginning it with ETH, with all the major pairs. Major pairs being Tether, USDC, DAI, WBTC, and yeah, this is the yeah. So 5 million units allocated for each pool. And yeah, that's the amount. If you want to look at the use right now, I think I have it somewhere. Okay, over here, I think. Yep. So over here, yep, these are the 4 main pools. Right now, I think the best yield for anyone that's looking to yield farm would be the ETH DAI pool. Yep. So I think the value loss is very little yet. So yeah, if you are going in there, you should be able to farm a decent amount. But do remember, take note of the impermanent loss and also take note of their uh, what else? Smart contract risk. But I guess Uniswap, it's reputable, should be safe enough. But if you need to go buy insurance from Nexus Mutual to cover it, just in case, never know, right? Um, then of course, let me get back here. Okay, yep. So then the remaining 430 million uni tokens, they will be locked up or at least distributed, vested and over the 4 years. And yeah, they will be according this to this schedule. Governance token now. Uni will then come into play and decide the community together will decide how best to issue out these funds and how they should be invested and how they should be used. This governance will do not know governance will only have access to the vested uni starting 18th of October. So right now, there's nothing much the uni token via the governance can do much to it right now. In the same way, the team investor and advisor tokens will be locked up in a similar schedule. This is what you need to watch if you are looking to speculate on the uni tokens, because these guys would have a buttload of it. let's see, it will consist of around, I think, 40%. So that is what you'll be interested in. And yes, claiming the tokens. This is yesterday's data. I think today's data, our team will have a dashboard to show you guys on how much was claimed already. Just for quick sake, I can tell you at least at this point in time, 93 million
Yeah,
of the tokens are circulating.
we can actually,
Yeah.
Kelvin, we can show that live. So if you don't mind me taking over your
Mhm.
screen for just a
Yeah,
minute.
yeah. Just go
So
ahead.
yeah, as Kelvin mentioned, let me share my entire screen. Here we go. All right. So as Kelvin mentioned, the claiming process for Unicoins is currently ongoing. So we have the very diligent backend developers at Santiment have already created a number of dashboards for Uni swap metrics in particular that will be live on Sanbase in about maybe I think a couple of hours if I'm not mistaken. But so here we can already kind of talk in terms of this is all live real-time data. We can already see the ongoing process of the Uniswap claims. So at the moment, out of the 150 million uni that have been kind of designated for being claimed by retroactive users and liquidity providers, 96 million uni has already been claimed, which is about 64.2%. By the way, when I was looking at this chart maybe 2.5 hours ago, this number was hovering around 60%. So it's still growing fairly strongly and fairly quickly. So we can see that the number of claims has kind of peaked yesterday around early morning. I think this is UTC. And the total number of claims at this point in time is 157,000. Now, as far as the actual users, this comes down to 122,000 users that have already. So these are previous users of the Uniswap platform, people that have used the Uniswap in the past, now being able to retroactively to claim coins for their retroactive interactions with the Uniswap protocol. 122,000 users have already claimed their 400 Uniswap, and then the liquidity providers, as far as their total number, there's 35,000 claims by Uniswap's liquidity providers. This all comes down to 96 point, well, 96.4 million uni being claimed. However, if we look at the actual number and amount of Uniswap claims, we can see this pretty big spike just, I mean, as we were talking. So this is, let me try and see exactly when it came. Yeah, this is 1545. So this is, I think, about an hour ago that we saw this massive spike in the amount of Uniswap claims, 2.16 million. Now, if you look at these charts so far, you can see that there isn't a correlating spike in any of them, neither in the amount of Uniswap being claimed by users or previous users of the platform, but there is a correlating spike in the amount of Uni being claimed by liquidity providers. So what we can deduce from this is that this was probably one or two very large previous liquidity providers to the Uniswap platform that have claimed 2.136 million Uniswap to date. I think this is the biggest spike as far as the Uni claimed. And you can definitely see a coinciding bump here in the total amount of Uni that have been claimed by liquidity providers. Now, what this might mean for the price of Uniswap is going to depend on what this person or persons decide to do with it. Because Kelvin, I believe that in your insight, you have kind of talked about the fact that a lot of these claims, these uni claims, they make their way to exchanges and are exchanged for ETH very actively and very quickly afterwards. Is that the case?
Yes, at least for all the 400, the one-time 400 claims, most of them
Mm-hmm.
are actually claiming it and then heading to Uniswap to swap it for ETH and be happy about it. That was yesterday. Things might be different today because as the price goes up, people are realizing like, oh shit, I shouldn't be selling this very
Yeah.
precious thing right now. So, which may also indicate why there are less users claiming it right now as well if they are suddenly switching their views. But of course, there is the gas issue that is happening. But I think the
Yes.
gas today seems to be kind of okay. or at least it's not as bad as yesterday. Yesterday, everyone was just rushing out the door, making sure that they can dump it. And then at one point in time, Uni was actually dumped to $1, and that was really the best place to pick it up because it was really undervalued at that point in time. Then I think Harvard at around 250 for some time. People were still dumping it at then, dumping it at $3, and after it went to 450 based on Coinbase listing, I think some people FOMOed in and then dump it back down to 250, and then people were like, ah, all right, man, I was right to dump. But then before this dumpage, whales were actually picking up a lot of it up, and then now where we are. So yeah.
I mean, this is as Kelvin was talking about Ethereum fees. So we also have a number of dashboards relating to fees in Ethereum on Ethereum, Ethereum's transaction fees. So let's look at fees in Ethereum instead, which you can see so far. Let me zoom in a bit so that I can show you, put this in further context, just how massive this spike actually is. Now let me zoom back in and show this to you a bit clearer. Maybe let's take the last 90 days. So we've seen a couple of momentous spikes in the amount of Ethereum being spent on transaction fees. So this particular spike has been, I think, attributed mostly to sushi. So the September 2nd and September 1st is the time when sushi was pretty much hovering around its all-time high. I can show that to you here. So if we go and look at sushi in, let's say, last 3 months, so we can see that, yeah, September 1st and September 2nd is when sushi was pretty much reaching peak hype, hovering at around $10.5 per pop, and then coinciding with this massive spike in the amount of transaction fees on the Ethereum network. So yesterday, obviously, courtesy of the Uniswap airdrop, we saw a massive spike once again in the total transaction fees on the Ethereum network. Now, this is probably, if we look at the total number of claims that have been executed over the past 12 hours, it has definitely started to diminish and gradually grind to a halt, if not completely. So we are likely going to see this normalize at least somewhat over the next couple of hours and couple of days. Obviously, I think we just published a weekly report which points to the fact that over the last month, the average daily transaction fee on Ethereum is $4.69. So don't expect the fees to drop down to like pre-August levels, but at the same time, you shouldn't expect it to be as high as they were yesterday, which is the average transaction fee yesterday was $11.06 to interact with the Ethereum platform. Quite crazy, right? So I just got word that this particular spike in the amount claimed came from a single address. So this is obviously a new Uni whale that has claimed 2.16 million Uni, courtesy of his previous liquidity providing efforts. So what is that? That's about what, 10.1, 10.2, maybe about $11 million worth of Uni that has been just acquired in the past hour by this one address. So it's going to be interesting to see what this guy does with it. As Kelvin mentioned, as people realize that the price of Uni continues to rise, they might be more intent to hodl for the time being rather than immediately offloading it to exchanges. This might just crash the market if the person decides to offload it all at once. So these are some of the dashboards, guys, that we have developed just today, trying to give you more perspective about the ongoing evolution of the Uni token. Obviously, this is a very young token, so trying to make any like bird's view claims by looking at its on-chain data is going to take a while. So if you are interested in these particular metrics, let us know. They will be live on Sanbase later today and will be available to all Sanbase Pro subscribers. But also, if you would like to see some additional information about the Uniswap protocol and about the Unicoin in particular, the behavior of different stakeholders in the Uniswap ecosystem, let us know, and we'll continue to update these dashboards as the days go by. Max, if you're still on the call, anything that you would like to add as far as the current sort of uni hype and where you might think we might be going next?
Yes, I'm still here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, from point of data, it's still too little, yeah?
Yeah.
Hard to say. What we want to typically, when we make data-based predictions, then we want to see some specific group of stakeholders. They start doing something, yeah? So, or opposite, the price start pushing up intensively up, but big holders stop doing something. Yeah. So in the latter case, if we see, now the more data we get, if we see just imagining Uniswap token going $5, $6, $7, $8, and there are no moves to exchanges. So we say, okay, this is the top because the stakeholders don't want to sell now. They believe we can grow more, and this is exactly where the market turns around. It punishes you for believing or hoping too much. So this is one scenario. Another one will be, of course, if we see price going down a lot, $3 or $2, and all the small holders they stop moving and dumping. It means they will panic and say, okay, finally I can buy my, what does it buy? PlayStation, yeah, 4 or 5.
Yeah. Well, now they're saying you can buy a Mac Pro with it. So
oh, Mac Pro, okay. So if we see this behavior on the data, we will call, okay, this is the bottom, you can buy now. But as we said, data should flow in, and now we have good overview. And just for those who are listening now, we also split into specific groups. Initial Genesis holders, those who bought it on the market, exchanges, liquidity providers, so we can track separate groups and see when they start acting or when they lack acting. Could expect from us, at least in our Pro insights or in our Pro community, more price calls based on data. From my perspective, now, before after this introduction and saying, okay, whatever I say now, it's not based on data, there is too little of it. Just looking at the price traction, we should have one more top. I would expect 7, 8 from how it looks to my eye. We have 2 pushes, and typically I like to see 3. Yeah, one, and if you plot on top of it, actually, if you go to Sanbase, you open your token, take maybe intraday, and then place a volume on top of it. Well, we have some data last day, and you press volume. So this looks healthy. I mean, price keep pushing, volume increasing, profile looks good. Yeah, from whatever data we have. I'm waiting, and as you know, also because we interacted with Uniswap, we have a little bit Uni tokens. I mean, as a team, I don't sell it yet. Well, anyway, it's not so much. If I would be having 1 million Sun tokens or 1 million Uni tokens, maybe my behavior would be different. Now, with this amount what I have, I don't worry much at the moment, and I would assume other Uni token holders like us, they don't worry much at the moment. Whoever wanted to buy a MacBook Pro and others they bought or they dumped, the others are waiting. So maybe
free money.
Yeah, free money. But now you think, okay, if I can buy a MacBook Pro and PlayStation, why not?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. So maybe ideally we go a little bit down, like to 3, 4, a little bit panic, so that people start realizing profit, and then we push to 8. I personally waiting for 8.
Okay.
Yeah. But that will be
so for some reason, I was logged out of my account during the call. I don't know, so that's why I wanted to show Brian, if you want to share your screen really quickly and just take the last day of Uniswap and plot social volume, even though it is very recent and there's not a lot of data to go by. Already we can see these correlations between the amount of mentions of Uni on social media and local price volatility. So if you want to share a screen while I get back into my account and just show what we're seeing as far as the connection between Uniswap's price and its social volume over the last day.
Yeah, no problem. All right, so I'm heading over to Uniswap. And we are going to look at social volume as Dino just specified.
Take 1 day, yeah?
Yeah, and just take the last day of data.
Last day. Here's what it looks like. Yeah, so as Dino's saying, it looks like the large spikes are definitely indicative of tops. You can see that we had a bunch here. This was sort of the peak all-time high.
But wait, Brian, before we think too much, it's still low levels of volume, so I would not. There seem to be some correlation, but it rather says to me we still have way to go. I would expect much more people to talk about Uni normally under such conditions where the market not so many exciting things going on.
What's the interval for this, Brian? Is it an hour or?
Each of these looks like it's 5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay.
Each bar is 5, and this is 1 day.
Can you change the interval to 1 hour?
Yep.
Yeah, because if 5 minutes, okay, then it's quite a lot.
Yeah. So you hover over the social volume button, and there's a cog.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, and so change there to 1 hour.
So yeah, this is each bar is 1 hour now.
Yeah, so I mean, look at 10:30. There we go. The biggest spike before the first correction, right? And so afterwards, we kind of dropped down a little bit. Obviously, this is just hour by hour, but the last several times that we saw spikes, the first one came about, what is that, like 2010, so about 8 p.m. and 10 minutes after 8, and that one is just right after midnight when as Uniswap was speaking. So still very low data or very small sample size to go by, but in general, you guys know, anybody that watches our videos or reads our insights knows that we definitely believe that the amount of mentions of a particular coin on crypto social media, which this is showing, when you correlate it to the price of a coin, when there's a spike in social mentions coinciding with the price rally, if that spike is not sustainable, or once it starts to dissipate, pointing to kind of waning crowd interest and declining attention from the crowd, it's usually coinciding with the short-term correction. So far that has been the case. We're seeing one big push up in terms of community interest over the last couple of hours here. We'll see what happens with the price of it. As long as this amount of hype is sustainable for at least for the time being, then the price can push upward. But if we see once again sort of the divergence between the amount of talk relating to Uniswap going down and the price of Uniswap trying to push upward, we might see another mini correction coming for the coin. Okay.
So based on what Maxim said, obviously we're still early on in social volume, so we're not quite sure what a true spike would look like. Yeah. I think that's fair to say, but based on just the short history we have, we are at another point where we're starting to look like we're getting that high level of social volume. So maybe the next move looks more downward than upward based on this, but we'll have to see what the next candle looks like. It's pretty tough to say this early on into the age of an asset.
Yep, agree. Okay, I think that can conclude the part of this call where we talked about Bitcoin, Ethereum, as well as Uniswap. Guys, the dashboards that we showed you for Uniswap, let us know of any additional or complementary dashboards that you would like to see, anything that you would like to know about Uniswap and its ecosystem in the future. Actually, the Uniswap protocol dashboards are already live on Sanbase. Let me share my screen and I can show them to you right now. So select my entire screen, show, let's see, Control-Shift-R. There we go. Okay, so as you can see, so these are the dashboards that we've already ported to Sanbase. This is available at the moment already on the Sanbase platform. Here we're looking at the amount of UNI that went to exchanges, CEXs versus, or centralized exchanges versus the centralized exchanges. You can see the breakdown by various holder categories, including centralized and decentralized exchanges, all of the addresses that have been labeled as DEX traders based on their previous activity, the amount that has been minted so far, the amount that it was moved after being claimed to exchanges, and the amount that has as of yet been not moved. So we can see that already about 66 million out of the 96 million that have been claimed have been moved to exchanges. Very, it's definitely an interesting juxtaposition here. So about 2/3 of people are already kind of moving their claimed bags to exchanges, while 1/3 is hodling for the time being. You can also see the top token transactions over the last, well, it says here 30 days, but obviously given that the coin has almost only been live for about 48 hours, you'll see the biggest transactions for this particular coin, and then you'll be able to track where they went to. And yeah, as you saw already, the amount of total claims by users, claims by liquidity providers, total claimed amount, and the biggest claimers. This is probably the guide that I was pointing to a minute ago, the guide that has claimed 2.1 million Uniswap. We can look at its bags here, price of Uniswap. Okay, it might be too early to show.
Yeah, you need to select also 1 day, right? Not 1 week.
Yeah. But anyway, I don't want to spend too much time already on Uni dashboards. I just wanted to show you guys that we have already ported what I was just showing you. It's already live on Sanbase. Just go to app.santiment.net/Uniswap dash protocol. The link is going to be in the description of this video if somebody can share it with people. All right, so I saw a few different coins that people wanted us to look into. Let's first look at the Kusama coin. So I saw a few people mentioning it in chat. So given that Kusama is not an ERC20 coin, we are a bit more limited in terms of the data that we can look into, because we aren't currently tracking its on-chain activity, but we can still look at its social activity, its general pricing data, as well as its development activity. And guys, if you are interested in on-chain data and on-chain activity of particular coins, the bread and butter of the Santiment platform is Ethereum and ERC20 coins. So we have a wealth of data and indicators for all ERC20 coins. As far as on-chain behavior is considered, and the behavior of different stakeholders. So any ERC20 coins in particular that you want us to look into, let us know in the chat. But let's look at Kusama just briefly from a standpoint of social and pricing related data. So first of all, let me see if we have the amount of mentions of Kusama over time and how they correlate with the price of the coin. So this is something that I just mentioned, right? I just said literally about 5 minutes ago that we believe at Santiment that these types of spikes in the amount of mentions of a particular coin, especially as they coincide with the rally of a coin, are usually, if they prove not to be sustainable, which they have proved here over the course of the next couple of days, they usually lead to a short-term correction. Why is that? Because basically what we're seeing here, guys, is we're seeing this massive amount of new interest towards Kusama as around the September 2nd spike. So obviously this drop off here is just market-wide, right? But what I'm trying to say is that we've seen a massive amount of hype around Kusama coin or KSM coin as it started. Was this an all-time high? Let me see. Yeah, this was an all-time high. As it breached all-time high on September 2nd. So with the all-time high breach, we saw a rising amount of volume on social media, rising amount of KSM and Kusama mentions on over 1,000 different crypto social media channels that we track. And then what happened shortly thereafter was, as the hype dissipated, so even before the market-wide correction, as the hype started to diminish, and kind of the general crowd moved on to other topics, we saw a short-term correction in the price of Kusama. So now let's look at a bit more of a short-term trend. Social volume. Actually, let me zoom out a bit. This will be just to put it in larger context. Let's see what's been going on recently. Okay, let me refresh. Okay, so once again, it seems like we're seeing a bit of an increase in the amount of chatter around Kusama. This is not something that I like to see personally. Like if you look at the previous spikes in social volume, right? Even though like generally this amount of chatter, it's not very high, but even this small amount of chatter, like 23, I think this interval is fairly low, right? 4-hour interval, but still, like when you look at the string of spikes previously, you can see that they coincide with short-term, with local price stops and short-term correction. So here we saw a spike before a correction. Here we saw a spike in social volume before the correction. Even here, although this kind of pales in comparison now, there was a string of spikes in social volume before we saw Kusama start correcting once again. So now, as KSM is starting to recover from the market-wide regression here, we're seeing another string of spikes as far as the amount of mentions are considered. This relatively should be considered a bearish indicator for its short-term price action. I would ideally, when looking into a coin and its fundamentals, I would like to see it kind of being under the radar a little bit, as to mean that we're still in sort of the undervalued territory. People are not really talking about it. It gives the price a room to grow before the FOMO starts to kicking in and people, start overhyping it on social media, leading to whales dumping their bags. So this kind of spike in the social volume over the last couple of days concerns me a little bit as far as its short-term potential is considered. Let's look at its general trading volume. Yeah, once again, we're seeing a rising volume, which is not necessarily a bearish signal, but at the same time, coinciding with the rising social volume might be. We can also look at the amount of sentiment or the general sentiment towards Kusama using our social metrics. So what I was just showing was just the total amount of mentions of Kusama on crypto social media. Now what I'm going to show you is the actual mood of the crowd. Using our custom social sentiment algorithm, we are trying to calculate or to label each incoming message containing a certain coin as either positive or negative or ambivalent. So what we want to see here is what is the general mood of the crowd towards Kusama and what it has been in the past. So let's look at, let's wait for this one to load. And in the meantime, guys, any additional coins that you want us to look into at the end of the stream, let us know. Okay, so we're seeing, okay, maybe this chart is a bit more telling, actually. Let's see, zoom in a bit. All right, so yeah, this is once again relatively concerning for KSM. So what we're seeing here is we're seeing these spikes in the sentiment balance point to spikes in bullish sentiment, as the sort of bullish crowd is overshadowing the bearish crowd, and therefore we're seeing these blue spikes. So we saw a few of them coinciding with kind of incoming local price stops and near-term corrections. So we saw one here in July as KSM was peaking. We saw a major spike in bullishness towards KSM, coinciding with the short-term correction. We saw once again a major spike in KSM bullishness before the correction, and once again we are seeing the general mood of the crowd moving towards a increasingly bullish atmosphere, moving towards overvalued conditions. Obviously, this isn't like the end-all be-all of indicators. I would definitely use other, both TA and on-chain indicators to make my decisions. But in general, from a social data standpoint, it doesn't seem like Kusama is looking all too healthy at this moment in time. Okay, let's see what else we can take a look into. I'm seeing AMPL as another request. AMPL is always interesting to me. These stable coins that aren't really stable coins are quite a new sort of a new invention. It's difficult to know exactly how to evaluate them to a point. But once again, we see spikes in social volume here during the bottoming as well as during the price peak here on the September 1st. So sometimes you will see the massive spikes in social volume also coinciding with local bottoms for coins. This doesn't usually happen for a lot of altcoins. It's usually reserved for Bitcoin and Ethereum, where people are talking about it not only as they are peaking, but also as they are bottoming out. But for Ampleforth in particular, we can see, there's been a lot of chatter about Ampleforth as it was kind of bottoming out here in July, at the end of July. We saw a major, okay, let me zoom, switch away from night mode so you can see a bit more clearly. We saw massive spikes in social volume before it started correcting here, and once again we saw a string of spikes before another correction. So like I said already, this is just from a social standpoint. I like to see these low levels of social activity, which point to the fact that people aren't necessarily paying too much attention to this coin. Kind of, it's flying under the radar. It's allowing the price to do its thing before we get the FOMO crowd going in and wreaking havoc on the rest of the market. So let's look at some on-chain data for Ampleforth as well. Usually I like to start by looking at the general amount of speculative demand. This in particular, we're looking at the amount of Ampleforth being moved to exchanges over time. So we saw several spikes in Ampleforth being moved to exchanges during the market correction, pointing to signs of capitulation possibly. And then since then, we've seen another sort of spike in exchange inflow as the AMPL started to recover. Once again, as the sell side pressure rises, it pushes the price downwards. Over the last couple of days, at the very least, we're seeing a decline in total amount of sell side pressure, which would be a good sign for its midterm price action. Let's look at the total amount of Ampleforth being available on exchanges. So this is also, it has declined a little bit here in the mid-September, but now it's once again on the rise. So usually what I would like to see is the opposite trend. I would like to see the amount of supply of a specific coin on exchanges declining, because that points to the fact that the amount of coins being available to trade is diminishing, and assuming unchanged demand, this can help inflate the price of the coin in the short term. As you can see here, this is, I think, also what happened is as the amount of Ampleforth on exchanges began declining, the price of Ampleforth started to rise. This is something that I've noticed very often in altcoins being the case. Once again, here even like as you see, the total supply of Ampleforth goes from 31.6% on exchanges to 21.4% on exchanges, coinciding with this short-term breakout. Over the past couple of days, however, we've seen in general a rise in total supply of Ampleforth on exchanges, which isn't necessarily a great indicator for its short-term price action. Look at the general network activity and try to figure out whether the network looks healthy or not. Let's zoom out a bit just so we can put this in proper context. So you can kind of see, you can kind of see Ampleforth going from nothing to just exploding in usage over the last couple of months, coinciding with the DeFi hype in general. I think kind of awareness about Ampleforth.
Will be interesting. You can compare on top of it maybe Ethereum price.
Let's do that.
In this way, we'll also show how much you can do with Sanbase.
There we go. Okay.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. It was middle of the last push in Ethereum where even Ampleforth got some love.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Right here we saw the peak activity toward like the total amount of addresses interacting with the Ampleforth coin was peaking at 8,000, which is impressive. Usually, I think on a daily basis, there's only about 20 or 30 ERC20 coins that have more than 100 daily addresses. So this is, it's very good. Since then, we've obviously been declining. However, even still, the total amount of addresses like today that have interacted with the Ampleforth platform or the Ampleforth coin is 600, more than 600. This is good. Like, yes, there's definitely a decline, but overall, there's still some activity on the network. ideally, I would like to see the network activity kind of rising over time. But it's not to say that the network is entirely dead. It's not. 600 daily active addresses, although it might appear small, if you compare it to other ERC20 coins, it's still fairly high. Like we can show a few other sort of mid-range coins and their amount of daily active addresses, you'd be surprised how low it is. So 600 daily active addresses is by no means something to scoff at. Let's look at the actual amount of coins being moved on the AMPL fourth, the total amount of AMPL fourth being moved over time. Let's take the 1 day interval. Okay, yeah, I mean, in general, we saw the sort of mini capitulation here as the coin started bottoming out after this period of rallying. Since then, the total amount of AMPL4 being used by an exchange between network addresses remains high, about 45 to 50 million, with a peak here of 126. This is once again pretty good. I think that in general, the total amount of AMPL being moved points to increased utility of the coin. It points to just general speculative and utilitarian demand, something to keep in mind. Now, I'm no expert in the AMPL supply and how it works, so I already see a couple of comments on there. So finally, let me just try and look at the mean dollar invested age and see the trends in the total sort of network-wide behavior of different stakeholders. So these, just very briefly, these rises or inclines in the mean dollar invested age slope point to network-wide, accumulation or just hodling event as the age of coins overall or on average grows higher, meaning that the coins are not exchanging or moving between addresses as much. However, on the other hand, when we see these drop-offs in mean dollar invested age, it points to a pivot away from distribution into, a pivot away from accumulation into distribution. And so we see this sort of event coinciding with the decline in AMPL4's price action. Once again, we saw a similar decline here. But since then, over the last month, the mean dollar invested age for AMPL4 has continued to grow, pointing to the fact that at least in the short term, there's the long-term holders of AMPL4, or as long as they can be, the long-term holders of AMPL4 have kind of stuck to their bags. They're not moving them at a higher clip as much anymore, which you want to see as far as the short-term and mid-term price action. You definitely want to see hodler loyalty and people exhibiting confidence in their holdings by not moving them between addresses and not moving them to exchanges. So overall, I would consider this a relatively optimistic signal, but just looking at its exchange data, it's not great. Like there's still quite a lot of exchange or sell side demand here, or sell side pressure here. We're seeing the spikes in the supply on exchanges. These in particular worry me a bit. Also, the fact that, did we look at social data? I can't remember. Yeah, okay. Yeah, we did. Yeah, I mean, the social data it's relatively low. So the most worrying signal of everything that I just saw was probably its exchange-related data that I think might be a bit concerning for its price action. Okay. Let's see. Anything else in terms of coins that we had in chat? Somebody was mentioning Link, right, Brian? I think.
Yep. Yeah, Link is mentioned by Amit.
Okay.
Like
You want to
just a little bit?
Yeah, you want to take over?
Let's see what I can do. All right, Chainlink. We're looking at social volume. I'm going to back out just a little, put it on a regular interval. Do the last 6 months. Okay, so Chainlink obviously was getting quite a bit of hype, especially toward the very end of the summer. Mid-August is when the all-time high hit. We had a scrape, I think, right at $20 before it backed off quickly. And we can see that social volume basically forewarned it, and it didn't come, simultaneously at it. So if you were watching social volume for Link right before the top hit, you would see a spike like this just about, I'm looking over here, guys, you can see the time. We had August 14th at about 9 a.m. and it peaked at actually about a day later. So if you saw the social volume spike here, you would have been able to get a signal to start to sell some assets basically before the top hit, because the top tends to hit shortly after these social volume spikes. We had another one here that also sort of forewarned kind of a plateau that was happening and a slight decline afterwards. Then we saw this social volume spike here that signified that the price had dropped off to the point where people were starting to talk about it in a negative fashion. And if you're getting in on a huge decline like this, you can benefit from a big ascension shortly after. After that, this one didn't really give us a signal at all. And that's, we can't rely on social volume or any metric 100%. So that tends to happen. But that was basically our last local top that we really had up until this spike, which kind of might be an indicator of a local bottom. I wouldn't be confident enough because the spike isn't high, but in isolation, if we zoomed into just this area, we would say that this is the highest spike we've really had in a while. So looking at just the last month, it should show up a little bit more. Give it just a moment. There we go. Yeah, so that was August. I'll zoom in even a little bit more to the last week. Here we go. So yeah, we've had 3 big spikes now as we've been in this ranging period between about $11 all the way down to $10.70. And I want to look at daily active addresses too. If I can find it in this menu. We got deposits. Here we go. We'll back out again. Look at the last 6 months. And obviously we see a huge rise that has coincided with that local top that happened in mid-August. And when the price dropped, so did the daily active addresses in a hurry. That being said, we're still at a much higher level than we were back in the earlier portion of the year. This is all sort of post Black Thursday, as the price was kind of ranging but rising along with most other altcoins. And you can see that obviously after the peak, DAA has dropped, but it is high. I can actually show you what it looks like on my model, because it's sort of exchange days between bullish divergences and not so bullish. If I can get out of full screen, there we go. So if we go over to Link, I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger here. We had huge bullish divergences that happened around the peak. The last one kind of coincided with the big bounce, the secondary bounce that happened. And then after that, we immediately went into red territory. And the red territory basically forewarned us that we were going to drop off like pretty instaantly, especially considering there was no red at all, going back to post Black Thursday dates. And when we did finally get some bullishness, we were warned a few days ahead of time that there would be some sort of price bounce as we were declining. This is what we look for when we're trying to catch a falling knife, so to say. We want these bullish bars to sort of start showing up and say, okay, now that price has dropped off enough, daily active addresses are finally in the range of what's considered healthy growth potential. And when that happened, we were able to get back up to about 1291. And since that time, we've actually been in sort of bearish territory We had one single very minor bullish bar, but overall, if we look at just the last 2 weeks, this looks negative, guys. I would not be a huge fan of investing in Chainlink just based on daily active addresses alone. There are other aspects like the social volume that I just showed that is a bit more optimistic, but you know, in a vacuum, I do believe that this model does a lot of good short and midterm price prediction. And right now it's a bit down. You could ignore the current red bar because a lot of altcoins right now, if we look at the current day, the negative percentages basically show that we're below average on pace wise for the current day. But we need to see how the current day sort of plays out before we give um, too much fair analysis on where these assets are going to go. But if you do look at Link on like the 5-day scale, mostly negative other than the 16th where we had a slight bump that coincided with it. If we do want to find any projects off of this model that might look sort of optimistic for the short term, I'd say the only two that are in the positive right now are Maker and Litecoin. Litecoin is kind of iffy just because it doesn't have the best correlation with its DAA. It does have some, but as you can see, like all of this heavy bullishness didn't really make much of a difference. So just proceed with caution on that one. Maker does coincide pretty well, and Maker has had some pretty good spikes here over the past 6 months, particularly in early June, early to mid-August. And you know, obviously these reds coincided with the drops and they justified that the price would be dropping off. That being said, we're now in a range where we just had its biggest bar in the bullish side since last month. So it's at about a 30-day high for bullish divergence. So take that for what you will. I'd have to go into Maker more. I don't have time. I just wanted to segue one of the few positive divergences that are showing on the chart now. But overall, from an altcoin perspective, this red is a bit scary. Not even just the current day where it's calculating the on pace percentage, but the last few days. Not a lot of green going on, guys. So keep that in mind and just be safe and careful, and don't use this as pure investment advice. This is basically just mathematically calculating the amount of daily active addresses versus the expected average historically for each of these assets for what's considered a healthy amount of address activity. But yeah, hope that answered the question about Link, and I gave you a little sort of bonus info about some other altcoins as well. And just ask me more in the general channel on our Discord if you'd like to hear more about how the model works in general, and you know, what you're seeing with other assets and what our take is on it. We're happy to help.
Yep. Thanks, Brian. I think that's going to do it for us today, guys. It's already been about 80 minutes. Thank you very much to everyone that's actually stuck by until the end of the stream. If you like what you heard today, there are two things that you absolutely must do. Number one is click like on this video and subscribe to our channel to let YouTube know that this content is good and it should be promoted more heavily on their platform. And it also confirms to us that this is something that you guys like to hear and like to see and would like maybe more of, so that we can start doing it more frequently. So if you enjoy this type of content and you would like us to make more of it, maybe even shorter videos a bit more frequently, let us know in the comments, and please like and subscribe to this channel so that we can grow it as well. The second thing that you should do is check out app.santiment.net. Everything that we've discussed today, including the new UNI token dashboards, are available on Sanbase at the moment. There is a 2-week free trial for everybody that makes an account, no credit card needed, and from then on, it's $49 a month. However, everybody that is listening to this particular stream can get 25% off their first billing cycle by entering the code TWIC, standing for This Week in Crypto, during their checkout process. So I think Max is already showing, hopefully on the screen, the overlay, which shows the exact discount code. So use that code after your free trial period has ended to claim your discount, 25% off the first billing cycle. So that's going to do it for us today, guys. Thank you very much for hanging around and asking us questions. If you don't want to wait until next week to talk to us about this sort of topics, jump on our Discord. The link is going to be in the description of this video. Thank you all that contributed to this call, Brian, Kelvin, and Max. Thank you for sharing your insights of the latest crypto market events. And I guess I'll talk to all of you in 7 days.
Yeah, one more last thing, because we touch on many points in our chat box in YouTube. And in generally we cover many different topics. We started I know, Ethereum and Uniswap and then literally covered many things. Feel free to move this conversation to comment section. We can exchange the ideas and charts and I don't know setups, many things. Like for instance, today during the talk when I mentioned someone asked about Uniswap potential direction, and actually we did discuss this before the talk with Kelvin, and they had between us a kind of agreement. 7-8 looks so good. It is almost there. Like just what I've been talking. It's like moving very nicely to this objective. I think it touched almost 7 now. So move to comments, or it's also open to go to our Discord. Well, I want to say our discussion conversation should not stop once now Dina press a button. That's it. The end. No, let's move on. We'd like
For sure.
Collaborate and ask and share and answer the questions too.
For sure. We can stay live for about 5 more minutes or something on YouTube, but then afterwards, I think we're going to just have to end the stream because there's not going to be any video feedback. But yeah, the link to our Discord is in the description.
Yeah.
Okay,
and I mean,
that's going to do it for us.
Comment section is good. I think we did not utilize it much. So let's utilize it too.
Yeah, agree.
Yeah. We're having a big altcoin drop as we speak, by the way, guys. So keep that in mind and look for some of the metrics that we've been talking about as some good opportunities.
Good stuff. All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye-bye.